and gentlemen, welcome again to another episode of the JD and Ferg Show. As you all know, we had just got through the draft this last weekend. So today's episode, as our post-draft episode, we're going to go through some of the teams that we felt were good this draft period and some teams that were not so good. Before we get started though, I wanted to kick off a nice little statistic that some people may not know. There were 221 draft picks that could have been traded this year. Okay? That's the non-compensatory picks, which are non-negotiable. That's where it is.
Roger that.
Out of that 221 picks, 101 of them happened to change hands. That is a 45.7%. 19 of which was done in just the first round alone, which is something that has not been seen since 1970.
It's a long time ago, and I'll tell you what, that's a lot of picks changing.
That's a lot of changing.
It's massive amounts. All right, let's kick this off. I'm going to start off with my good side, who did good. And after that, we'll go into who did bad. I'd say my top three on the ones that did good. First, we'll start off with the Patriots. Patriots was the 31st ranked defense last year in the NFL. They used their first 6 picks to draft none other than defensive players. Great pickups. They only had 7 picks altogether, and the first 6 all went to the defensive side. And their 7th pick, wide receiver.
If that doesn't sound like a team trying to go from worst to first, I don't know what does.
I completely agree. That's making some moves. That's making some moves for your needs. That's how you draft. Number 2 on my list has got to be Green Bay. Green Bay's in the same place. They had 8 picks overall. Their first 6 picks went all to defense as well. They were the number 32 ranked defense in last year's draft. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how you draft. Draft for your needs. You draft early, you draft often, and you draft for your needs.
And you make the good list.
And you make the good list. So, next I'd have to go with is the Chiefs. Man, the Chiefs have holes. They did a fantastic job of filling all their needs. They literally picked, every single one of their draft picks went to a need or a need backup. Every single one of their picks. So they did fantastic. And all their picks that they picked for those players in their positions, every single one of their draft picks were a top 5 player in their position. That's how you pick. That's how you make the good list. Now, there's going to be some teams on here that aren't mentioned. I deeply apologize, but these are some of my favorites. Another one I really liked, Cincinnati. Cincinnati had some holes. They had 10 picks in this year's draft. 2 of their picks were graded less than a 73. 2 out of 10 were less than a 73 grade. That's fantastic. And they met most of their needs. I think they only need one more thing, and they're done. They can fill that in the next free agency, and they're good to go. Next on my list, I want to mention is the Bucs. Bucs, with their first 3 pick, filled their serious need holes, and they picked up some serious players for those 3 serious needs.
And that all started off with Mark Barron in the first round. Definitely a good pickup.
Dang good pick. Great draft, Bucs. By the way, Bucs, great job in the free agency as well, because you had some holes, you fixed them so far on paper. Another one I want to mention is the Redskins. Redskins are going to hit my good and bad list. Here's the reason why they hit my good list. They needed a quarterback desperately. They went out and got RG3. Everybody knows this. Great friggin' pickup. With their 4th round pick, they also picked up a backup. They needed a backup because Red Grossman is just gross, man.
Now, please let me interject one little thought here.
Please.
But do you think that they probably added some unnecessary pressure on the shoulders of RG3 by drafting Kirk Cousins in the 4th round?
I'm going to go ahead and say no. And the reason I say no is because he was literally drafted for the purpose of a backup only. So RG3 shouldn't feel any repercussions from that whatsoever. He should just go on smooth as day. Another people I want to mention are the Colts. Colts could actually be put on the bad list too, but I'm going to keep them off the bad list because there's a lot of other people that need to be on that list. But here's the reason why they're on the good list. This offseason, I'd have to say the Colts went on a garage sale with their team. They literally got rid of a massive amount of their starting roster. They had 10 picks in this year's draft. 5 of them were graded at a 72.5 or higher. And every single one of those will probably end up starting on their starting roster because they were in such need. So, great job there. Now on the other 5. The other 5 of their picks were graded at a 55 or less. Those 5 will have a hard time making the punt and kick return team, the special teams.
The practice squad.
Right.
The practice squad's practice squad.
So that's the reason why the Colts should have been on the bad side, but overall they had a pretty good draft because with 10 picks they met the need of 5 really needed things, and they got it in there, and they got good people in those positions. Another team, my honorable mention is the Jets. They picked up their first 2 picks, Quentin Coples, defensive end, and Stephen Hill, wide receiver.
Definitely some high risk, high reward caliber picks there. Definitely a lot of potential too.
Definitely. Stephen Hill, I rather like. I would definitely take the chance on Stephen Hill. I probably would have took a chance on Coples too, but Coples does have a much stronger possible downside. But great pickups in general. And they had 8 picks. 4 of their picks rated in the top. They were graded at 69% or higher. So not too bad. Very good picking. They were my honorable mention. Now, let's go to the bad choices in life. Let's start off with the Raiders. Raiders. Their highest draft pick grade was a 79.7, and it was a wide receiver drafted in the 5th round. You got a couple wide receivers. I think you probably could have went somewhere else. Got a couple other things. Yeah, they only had a 1/3, 1/4, 2 5th round picks, a 1/6, and a 1 7th round pick. So they didn't have any 1st and 2nd round picks. But they did a they didn't do such a fantastic job because, all their picks were garbage picks. Another one I want to mention is the Browns. The Browns, I'm going to actually give a name. Dumb and desperate. Dumb for the reason why they chose the 29-year-old quarterback. They had 11 picks. 4 were graded at an 82.5, which is actually pretty dang good. But the rest of their picks, 7 of their other picks, were graded at a 50 or below. That is freaking garbage.
So basically, other than Richardson, they didn't have anything. Which a 5.8 average per carry throughout his collegiate career, that's a very good rushing average.
Dang good rushing average. And Trent Richards, I can honestly say I really liked that pick. Fantastic pick, strong pick, immediate starter, immediate. And he's definitely gonna show up this season, without a doubt.
And I think Hardesty would be in trouble too, considering that he's one of those players who's been having problems through his career staying healthy. He's played 10 games in the last 2 seasons due to injuries.
I personally did not know that stat, but yeah. Harvesty's in trouble then. Trent is moving in, and he's moving in with force. Harvesty's going to be the first one to feel that. So, good pick on the 82.5 or higher, the 4 picks, but the rest of them were flat out garbage and will more than likely never make your team. So having 11 picks and only getting 4 good ones, or 4 that you keep on a team, it's not my idea of a good pick. Anyways, next on the list, Chargers. While they drafted 2 great players and 1 pretty dang good player, they met no need. No need. Other than the wide receiver, they picked up a great wide receiver. They had a serious need for defensive linemen and offensive linemen, and they were not even drafted. No defensive linemen, no offensive linemen were drafted at all for the San Diego Chargers. How in the world can that be? That was one of your biggest needs going into this year's draft, and you drafted none of the above. That's how you make the list of the bad choices in life. Next on my list, we'll get right to the Redskins. This is why they made the bad side. They had 9 picks in this year's draft. 9. You got a lot to work with there. 2 picks were graded at a 69 or higher. That was your starting quarterback and your backup quarterback. The rest of your picks are graded at a 69 or lower. Actually, 68 or lower. That's garbage. That's flat garbage. You got too many needs that you need to fill those holes with good players, and you didn't get those. My opinion. Next on the list, Seahawks. I'm not sure if these guys flat showed up for this. They had 10 picks in this year's draft. 2 of those picks were rated at a 69 or higher. 2 out of 10. Okay, other words, you might have, 1 pick for sure will play this year. 2, possibly. The rest of them will be likely to make a practice squad. That
sounds like that's what they were actually trying to create through the draft, was a practice squad.
No joke. Yeah, something tells me, draft for the team. And last but not least, the 49ers made my bad choices in life picks. And the reason, I may catch some flack for this as well. First 2 picks made no sense to me whatsoever. First, you pick a wide receiver. And number 1 and number 2 wide receivers were taken off the board. You took number 8. So 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 were still on the board when you took the 8th number 1 wide receiver, 8th best wide receiver in the first round. You know, I understand the fact that that guy might have been in somebody you've been looking at. You really like him, but there's better potential out there that you could have got. And with this year's draft, the way they redid this stuff, you have to sign up for a 4-year, and each drafting round 1, 2, they all have different pay scales. You can only pay a guy so much for round 1, round 2, and it's dirt cheap. Andrew Luck is looking at a $22 million contract for 4 years. $22 million. They got a guy named Jamarcus Russell that nobody gives a rat's butt about that made $60 million guaranteed for literally never showing up or for being the worst quarterback in NFL history. He's the reason why they put this little cap. Anyways, moving on. Their second round pick was a running back, LaMichael James.
3 consecutive 1,500-yard seasons, though. I understand the depth at running back, but that's pretty good.
He's a decent running back, no doubt about it. I can't kick the guy for that, but they got a lot of depth at running back. That's one team that actually has some really decent running backs. And that's not to say Gore is just a decent running back. He's a damn good running back. But, even his backups, all of them, they're all dang decent. So for the second round to get another running back just didn't make sense to me. You got an offensive line that really needed improving. They did pick up 2 offensive linemen, but were not graded out very well, and were picked late. I'm sorry, but with the way the setup, everything is set up nowadays, I would have taken an offensive lineman first and second round, get that knocked out. You're almost for sure got a couple starters in there, or even dang good backups. That's how you solidify. I don't call this solidifying. Just saying. Especially since all the big name wide receivers they picked up in the off season too.
Well, I mean, even as far as the wide receivers go, even when Walsh went out and drafted Dwight Clark, nobody thought that he was worth picking. They tried to tell him that he was someone they could pick up after the free agency. So I guess the talent does just depend on how it's perceived for that system.
No doubt about it. 7 of their picks were all graded at a 78 78 ain't bad. I'd get all the way down to 69 before I start. But, you know, it's a lot of picks. They were picking a lot of guys at the lower end of the bucket. The way this draft is set up now, you can pick the top end guy and pay him little to nothing for 4 years. Do it. Anyways, that's all I got to say. A couple other honorable mentions. Vikings, fantastic job in the draft. All the way around. You picked up some great players. You did some great maneuvers. Got yourself a lot of picks this year, next.
That's definitely one of my 3 top favorites. The 3 teams that I think did the best in the draft was Vikings, Cowboys, and the Patriots.
Yeah. Pats, most definitely. Cowboys, they had 2 good picks. The rest of them, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. But those 2 guys that they did pick up were some of their biggest needs, and they filled them.
And it could probably stop them from blowing another, 5 fourth-quarter leads that they did last year.
And I would actually agree with that because both the guys that they're their best picks, cornerback and a defensive end, their biggest needs. And they picked big-time players for those, and great moving up to get Morris.
And 2 other things that I wanted to mention as well was that the Cards picking up Michael Floyd, he was already drawing comparisons to Anquan Bolden. So if he does fill that position very nicely, then that could spell trouble for the other receivers other than Fitzgerald on that roster. But that would also be a great compliment for Fitzgerald. Also take some of that coverage away if he pans out.
Yeah, I think Floyd is a great backup for Fitzgerald.
And also the Texans drafted Whitney Mercedes, who last year had 16 sacks to end his collegiate career. Now, for that team to lose what they lost over the defensive side of the ball this offseason and to pick that up, that's a great addition. That's going to be an immediate impact player on that defense.
They had a huge hole. Huge hole. This one guy will, I'm not saying completely fill that hole, but he'll at least halfway fill that hole, that's for sure. Until he becomes comfortable in the NFL, he'll do just fine.
But whether we like their picks or not during this draft this year, one thing is for certain, and that is that only time will tell which players actually make it in the NFL and which players choke harder than Ryan Leaf. But either way, stay tuned because from now till the end of the preseason, we are going to actually do our episodes on an individual team every week, just so we could break down each team throughout the free agency, draft, all the way through OTAs and the preseason, see what teams are looking like going into the start of the 2012 season. So until then, everybody, please be sure to subscribe, share, and show us that you care every week. And until next time, you guys have a good one.
Love you.